welcome to the first Twitter Spaces hosted by Morningstar Ventures in 2025. I hope that you had a great start to the new year and that you're also excited about everything that is to come. So to kick off the year with a high and also with a great project, we are going to be talking to you, Chris, today, who you are the founder and CEO of SONIC, and that's a layer 2 blockchain that also recently had its TGE and thereby also launched the native token SONIC on major exchanges, including OKX, Bybit, KuCoin, you name it, and many more. Right. So before we get started, this session is live, but it is recorded. And we always share the full recording of the interview in the following week after the interview. And it will be available on all channels where people usually listen to their podcasts. So you name it, Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, and the likes. And for those of you that are dialing in just now and are new here, I am your host, Njani. I am the content manager at Morningstar Ventures. And if any of you have a question for Chris about Sonic during this call, please make sure that you write those questions in the comment section of this Twitter Spaces. Or you can actually also request to speak at the end of the session so that you can ask your question live. Right, so that's it from me from the introduction. So now, without further ado, let's get started. Welcome once again, Chris. It's really great to have you on board. I hope that you are having a great start to the year.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Nani. To answer your question, yes, it's been an amazing week for obviously everybody at Sonic, but also everyone who's bought Sonic on the open market. And it's been also a hectic week with obviously BTC and the macro kind of dropping a little bit as well. So overall, we've had a pretty eventful launch, especially one of the first launches this year. But overall, very, very excited for what's to come in Q1 and then obviously the rest of the year as well.
Yeah, and we will get into the TGE in just a bit. But before we do, it would be great if you could introduce yourself, share a bit about what your background was before crypto, and actually how you got into crypto in the first place. And if you could also tell us just a bit more about your journey to creating Sonic and what that's all about.
Yeah, for sure. My name is Chris Zhu. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Sonic SVM. And very interestingly, before crypto, I was actually, 1 year after graduation, I graduated NYU and then joined TikTok's mother company, initially as an investor, and then later actually joining their product team for strategy as well as for SaaS tools. So my background has always been, the topic of consumer application, as well as when I was at the SaaS tool team, our focus was intelligence augmentation. How do you get collective intelligence to augment and also get coordination amongst a huge group of people? And very interestingly, one thought pattern that we had was that artificial intelligence increases the efficiency of intelligence augmentation from a centralized manner, but there are also coordination problems that we look at, which is what basically crypto solves. So overall, that those were the two major topics that we investigated, and later on, I joined a Y Combinator-backed startup working in AI gaming, and then later in crypto as well. And it was from there, I met my co-founders, who were both my coworkers at that company, backed by Y Combinator, Makers Fund, Galaxy, such and so forth. And eventually, what happened was that we really enjoyed working together, and especially when it comes to gaming, AI, as well as crypto, we decided to kind of just dive all the way into this deep rabbit hole and start a project together. Initially, we were focused on NFTs, gaming assets, and a bunch of other go-to-market for other teams, but eventually settling onto Sonic, which was through the introduction of one of our ex-lead investors, FTX. We were invested by the likes of Galaxy, FTX, but also OKX, Bybit. They introed us to Solana, which kind of gave us the very, very fortunate, fortunate coincidence of meeting the foundation. and we've been building the Solana ecosystem since 2022, working on asset launches, tooling kits, and a bunch of other, go-to-market support. But it wasn't until late 2023 when we started building Sonic for a couple of reasons, which we can, obviously dive in a little bit more. But yeah, before Sonic, that was my experience in crypto as well as at TikTok or ByteDance.
Very great introduction. And it's we'll get back to indeed diving deeper into Sonic and also seeing what you guys are doing with TikTok at the moment. But before we do, let's go back to what you were saying about the beginning of your year and also that you guys just had your TGE. So first of all, big congrats on that. You definitely are one of the first projects of the year to launch, and I think it's been quite exciting for your community and also for your team. Tell us a bit more. How was the whole process leading up to the TGE? What were some of the biggest lessons that you learned from it? Would you do anything differently? Like, we're curious to hear how the experience was.
Yeah, from a results standpoint, I think we blew the expectation out of the water, and everybody on our team was pretty surprised and happy about how the TGE went. Obviously, we met macro downtrends right after we did launch the token. A couple hours later, BTC started downtrending, but I would say like it's a great result. Either way, we are currently sitting at, I believe, a 1.8 billion dollar FDV, and at peak we reached almost three or over three on chain. So overall, I think it was a great reaction to what we're trying to build, especially because of our positioning as the first SVM to launch in Solana. But at the same time, we are also one of the few teams, one of the only teams working on TikTok distribution, and it is a pretty difficult problem to solve even though the platform itself is so huge. Everybody uses X and uses Twitter, and we call it crypto Twitter for a reason. When it comes to short form attention span content, short form video content, the way that you get people to realize what you're building or to recognize you as a brand is significantly more difficult because of the speed at which the content iterates, right? So we're taking a crack at that, obviously generating around 2 million total registered users. And then I believe that's also what brought us here to the current stage of launch. But yeah, like, I think if there were one thing that I would do differently is definitely getting a little bit more sleep the week ahead of time. It was definitely a couple of days without much needed rest. So I'm glad that we made it work. We are now on a bit OKX, Bybit, Binance Futures, and not much else we can ask for really.
I think there's an ancient proverb in crypto that it never sleeps. So good
The
luck with
fact.
getting more sleep
It
in
is
the
a
future.
fact.
Let's go into TikTok actually, because you mentioned it already, and that obviously your TGE was also pretty important for your Sonic X gamers. Can you go a little bit deeper into what you are building on TikTok, how you are integrating Sonic within that, and what role the community plays there?
Yeah, for sure. So we actually think our communities comes from a pretty diverse set of backgrounds because there is the Solana background where we interact very, very closely with super teams all across the world. So we actually did what I would call like a road show across all of the super teams, Malaysia, Vietnam, India, Philippines, such and so forth. And then you know, um, sh- talking to all of the community members about why Sonic is building what it is. And then the second part of our community is the gamers that care about they basically care about getting more interesting type of game mechanisms. They don't have to be very complex or very very high production quality because in crypto you have to make up your mind to put money into the game, which is already high barrier, right? It's almost like going to a casino. You want to play the simplest mechanism and then you want to look at the fanciest table. That's what you're there for. So oftentimes that's some of the standard criteria that we source games with. If you look at Ronin, which is obviously one of the larger ecosystems out there, $3 to $4 billion, they pick very high quality games, three or four a year, And then as opposed to Immutable X, which is similar market cap or FDV, who do very different types of strategy, more so number over quality type of thing. But there are hits that come out of that as well. So different strategies. But the gamers are there within our community. And then the third pillars of our community consists of obviously traders. And Sonic is a very interesting target to trade because of both of those, those reasons, right? We are bringing a ton of users in, a ton of outside capital because of TikTok and the way that information is flowing there. But at the same time, it is also a very nicely positioned SVM chain and one of the first to launch over there. And as you can see, I think after we've launched, it has brought a lot more teams who are working on SVM onto the surface. So we're actually also very happy that what we believe is that an open source compatible framework, which is highly atomic and highly interoperable, like SVM, can bring a lot more functionality and use cases to crypto than previously envisioned. So we are happy that there are more SVM teams working on what we believe to be the future.
Very good. Great summary. And then back to maybe the gaming aspect of it. Let's go into that. So what exactly are you building in terms of the tap to earn game? Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Because that's quite interesting because you're tapping into a huge audience there. And also this was making headlines like a month or two ago as well, that you guys were on the platform and bringing in more users from to Web3.
Yeah, for sure. So, when we were building the mini app of Sonic X, which is our TikTok app layer on top of the main mobile application, we first thought about what we need to do to get users incentives, right? Ultimately, it is a mechanism designed for human coordination, like I just said. So we wanted to actually reward the users before they actually started learning more about the ecosystem. So airdrop for eligible users. We actually did one of the largest airdrops for any outside platform possible. There were like 300,000 new wallets registered in just the last week of the airdrop, and then previously we had like a total of like 1 to 2 million eligible or registered users. And at the current price of Sonic, the minimum user that would get is almost $50 for like the lowest airdrop. So that was a interesting drop where we allocated significantly to the TikTok users and they were able to claim through TikTok as well. But on top of that, we were also building the mini app so that aside from just the tap to earn for the airdrop eligibility, which hooks them in, right? We wanted to have great teams building on top of Sonic moving forward. So, for example, Mahjong Meta, which is a game invested by Dragonfly, has their game installed directly within the game center, which has accumulated like 500,000 of active users across the board. Great team building different types of mahjong IP games. So there's Solitaire, which is obviously very much Western focused, but they're also building other games, which, for example, Japanese mahjong is great within the Japanese local community. So when we build out, this mini app, it basically acts as the aggregation layer of all of these apps that can be locally run. So a Japanese mahjong game can be huge in Japan, but not so popular in the US, for example. But because we're aggregating all of these and then doing TikTok advertising, we can basically help mahjong grow in Japan. We can help solitaire grow in the US, and then we can help, for example, like tap to earn grow in Southeast Asia. And because of the amount of users TikTok has and the pure traction it already hosts, it makes our lives a lot easier as well.
Nice. And so you mentioned already a couple of games that are also being built in your game app. But maybe we could talk a little bit more about the developers that are using your tools. What are some of the incentives for the developers that you would provide in terms of them building on your platform?
Sorry, did you say incentives that we will provide?
Yes.
Yeah. So for our developers, there's basically like two different types of programs. One is more heavily involved. We want to king make, right? We want to pick the best teams, make their assets and their teams extremely valuable. And the other side is more so the like very easily approved open permissionless builders that we always onboard. And it's almost like a funnel, right? You get the permissionless set of builders building on top of your chain, and then kind of trickles down to the lead or the made kings on top of your ecosystem. And it always starts with the main asset, which is obviously Sonic, increasing in value. And then there are very, very good teams that we handpick first, a little bit more permissioned way, and then it expands the ecosystem more and more. So I'm actually pretty proud that we have a grant program that we give to game teams for them to be able to continue building on top of our ecosystem. And then we also have investment vehicles that directly ports our treasury into like basically a swap with these game teams. And in gaming publishing, like the way that you sign these deals is actually pretty comprehensive. You can actually have, for example, one, you directly buy into their equity, which in this case will be their token. The second could be project-based financing, where you're getting a part of their equity, but at the same time you get cash flow revenue based off of asset sales. So for example, if you're selling NFTs or you're selling tokens, it could be continuous flow from that. And then the third way that you can do these or game publishing is basically like wholly owning a studio and then getting them to produce whatever content that you would want. So these couple of things together add up to the way that we incentivize these developers, and that's just for games. There are very specific ways that we design these incentives for other teams as well.
I'm really glad you mentioned your GAME what's it called, fund, right? Could you explain a little bit more about this and what exactly, how people could actually apply for this grant and what it is exactly that you're looking for?
Yeah, so this is a partnership between us and Galaxy to back some of the amazing game teams through Sonic. And the way that it works is it's less of a fund, but more so a partnership, really to pick the best teams and then do basically a co-investment into these game teams. And we can basically help these teams get up to $1 million in cash through these deals, really focusing on the best quality content or assets. So the type of products that we pick can actually be pretty expensive, meaning that we can do AI agents, we can do TikTok teams, we can do games themselves, and I think ultimately it's about the team itself and what they're trying to build. We're not necessarily picking specific types of content.
All right, super. So I think we've covered a lot actually from the gaming aspect, also the TikTok aspect. I would love to shift gears a little and go into, well, your the more technical side of Sonic. So my first question on that side is why Solana? Why did you pick this ecosystem?
Yeah, it's been a long time since we were here. 2022, early 2022, we just left the traditional AI space, AI gaming space, and joined forces to build in crypto. And we understood very little about the technical implications of these different chains because we were 2 or 3 months into buildings Mirror World and Sonic. But we're pretty lucky that we got to talk to Polygon. We talked to Ryan Wyatt there back then. We talked to Yuri at Starknet. We talked to Solana Foundation and then a bunch of other chains as well, and Mutable X Robbie and later as well. The interesting thing was that during these conversations, one thing that popped out was that Solana cares significantly about user experience, speed, cost, as well as just efficiency. And I think it was a coincidence that it's less of why I picked this place, but more so because it just matched with my background personality as well. having worked at ByteDance and TikTok, one thing that we value internally was the mobile user experience significantly. And at the same time, we also really understood that ByteDance grew significantly faster than other competitors, or TikTok grew because of its mobile positioning, but at the same time, also their understanding of the ease of efficiency, the effects of user experience. And those were like things that we emphasized very, very much on a daily basis at work. So when we started talking to Solana, on the developer experience, it was still true in Glass, but when you just use Phantom, when you just use Flare, and a bunch of other products, the user experience itself is on a different level from the ETH competitors at that moment in time. In addition to that, we do also believe that each ecosystem needs to have a very loyal developer base and a very loyal trader base for it to be long-term sustaining. And that's exactly what we saw on Solana. Even after 2022, I was in Lisbon in November. When I was leaving Lisbon, one of the closing parties of Solana, we very quickly realized that, hey, CZ is not going to be buying FTX. Even then, even when the price is crumbling down, the core community and traders stayed within the group and traded and built back up the entire ecosystem. So it's almost like a story of Nirvana, a couple months ago, that we were looking at Solana, really just shocked and in awe of the entire journey that's gone through. So overall, like I think it's a part of our DNA and a part of our family to be here.
Very nice. It's a great reasoning. And then tell us a bit more about the technology. So you have the hypergrid. You're built on top of the hypergrid framework, correct? To orchestrate the Solana rollups. Can you explain this a little bit and how it powers Sonic?
Yeah, for sure. So Hypergrid itself is a framework that we propose to build Sonic. And it is one of the first SVM rollup frameworks that was available, on the market. When we first started building Sonic in 2023, late 2023, the teams were still working on, client as well as runtime decoupling and getting a lot of these notions into the code base. So what happened was that we built Hypergrid to solve a problem of synchronization between Sonic and the base layer. And because Solana uses proof of history for its consensus mechanism, it allows us to have a deterministic sequence of events that we can track. And based on the changes of these states on the rollup, we can actually have a delegation program on the mainnet to verify that every state root has changed once we store the changes in a concurrent Merkle tree data structure. And that allows us to basically verify that the state roots match the event changes on top of the rollup. And this synchronization scheme on Hypergrid allows us to process transactions very, very fast and very accurately between Solana mainnet layer as well as our Sonic SVM.
And so going forward, given that you've also had your TGE now, how do you want to technically handle scalability issues while your user base continues to grow?
Yeah, great question. I think that's what Sonic, started. Why Sonic existed, right? A story or the origin of Sonic that I often tell is that we actually saw that in 2023, late 2023, Star Alice was driving 15 to 20% of Solana's transaction hashes. It was actually driving significantly traffic to Solana, and then later we saw, drop transactions because of meme coins. Obviously, there were other solves like state weight quality of service and other improvements that actually led to improvements of priority fee taking effect. But overall, we actually still see that network sometimes gets congested of large usages. And the beauty, the beauty of SVM is that because we can basically have lighter decoupling of consensus as well as execution. We can use SVM as the execution layer and then lighter on the consensus or gossip, which means that on the nose we can make them lighter and just faster in execution. And when we do that, we actually have something called the Grid V2 coming up, that allows us to significantly scale a lot of those um, bottlenecks that we were just talking about.
Thanks, Chris, for all the technical overview of Sonic. I think we've covered a good portion of what you guys are doing, you know, the gaming, the technology point of view. And now I actually wanted to go into actually more about you before we close it off. As a co-founder of Sonic, we always love to ask the founders that we have on our Twitter Spaces to give the future founders or aspiring innovators and entrepreneurs who listen to these spaces 3 tips that you have learned while building a project in Web3.
Yeah, the first one is resilience is the biggest virtual that you can have. Stay on the poker table until you are dealt the best deck of cards. I think that's number one. The number two is I think trade as much as possible to understand the market. Products and market goes hand in hand. Even though sometimes token and product might not go hand in hand, you need to understand the products behind every trade, and then also the assets that you're trading and why people are trading them. That's number two. And then I think number three, of any founders, just to go global, one of the best virtues of our team is that it is highly distributed, very, very decentralized, but native to every single geographic region. So right now we're 20 people full time, but across 12 different countries. So we have engineers in Uganda, Slovenia, Asia, US, and then we have BD from India, Japan, Turkey, UK, Canada, such and so forth. But my point is that because of these geographic regions, you actually understand the different cultures of every single market a lot better. So, for example, like the way that you do marketing to Korean retails are very different from the way that you market to Japanese gamers, for example. And each market have the way that they handle information, the way that they value information as well. So for example, for a very basic example, right, like everybody wants respect in their lives, but the way that you speak to others in Japan, and the way that you chat during an AMA and be very casual or very fun, is more might be more important than some other geographic locations. I'm using that as a very rough example, but the 3 points to just recap, I think the first is be resilient, go through cycles, be prepared for the next wave, surf that. And then the second is, trade as much as possible, understand the market, understand the asset, but also understand the trading products that you're trading with. And then the third is, be highly ambitious and be global so that you understand the different geographic areas where you are dealing with a naturally decentralized community and group of people. Those would be my 3 biggest recommendations.
That's great. I think it's like, what's the saying? Be global, think local. That kind of, I think that's like a
Yeah,
marketing term
exactly. Exactly. I
that you
think
all
very
the
accurate.
nuance of different countries. I love that. I think that's a great one. Our team is very global as well, and it's so much fun just personally to work with a global team as well. And crypto obviously is super global, but at the end of the day, it is somewhat siloed to its regions. And each market can be super different, right? So yeah, I love that resilience. Obviously, stay at the poker table. Are you an ex poker player? I think you've mentioned poker a couple times.
No, I'm not.
Oh,
I'm actually not a GTO player at all. I tend to make fun bets. Let's just say that.
okay, got it. Nice. And trade to understand the market. You're the first one who said that on our Twitter Spaces, but I really like it. Product and market go hand in hand, and you see that more and more now with the bull market
Yeah,
currently, going somewhat strong. Let's put it that way. We
yeah.
had a little dip, but okay.
I actually
in
think like
the
most of the products with product market fit, so to speak, in crypto is basically financializing um, any type of markets, right? Like basically creating financial markets around your existing experiences, whether it be like the friend.tech or the vector app. A lot of these applications are to financializing a existing market, or existing social behavior. But at the same time, I also think that there can be decoupling of product and tokens. And as a product founder, how do you balance that and not just be very pigeonholed into looking at your product only? I think is oftentimes very important as well, especially because a lot of the distribution happens with your community. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Great. Thanks for that. Those are three really great tips. And before I go into my second to last question, I do see a question from the audience in the chat, which is from Sumi Lot. They are asking, is the airdrop campaign for Sonic over on TikTok, or can new users still onboard the TikTok mini app and earn? Asking for me and my community.
Yeah, so our snapshot was already done, a couple of days ago. I would say there's probably more incentives for Sonic later through the mainnet campaigns that we're gonna have in a while. But yeah, the TikTok campaign is already done, and we will be moving into the next stage of our project.
Okay, and that's actually a perfect segue to my next question, because we have seen in the past that one of the more frequent challenges for projects is to continue to keep their community engaged after the token launch. So, what are some of the alphas that you can share with us that you are going to be doing to keep the community engaged?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. So as I said, the incentives of staking of our nodes as well as mainnet is not live yet. So we are going to announce that very, very soon. In addition to that, there are new projects that are building on top of Sonic that we haven't revealed. Our DeFi ecosystem is getting more mature on the background, and then we are also going to be hosting community events across the globe. We just actually came up with the event list. But more importantly, I think we have had the strategic partnership with some of the most important partners who are basically supporting us through the backing of our ecosystem projects. So with that, I believe we can pick out the winners in our ecosystem very soon as well.
Thanks for that. Sumi, I hope that answers your question, as I see that you're still requested, but I think your question was also in the chat. Chris, that was actually it from my side. I think we got through a lot of really great content, and really excited to see what's going to be coming up next with Sonic, and all of your initiatives, and what you're going to be doing with the games, and also with your product. So thank you again for coming on board to speak to us. I know it's a very busy time for you.
For sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's been a very interesting couple of days. Looking forward to this weekend as well. But have fun in the beginning of the year. Thank you for having me.
Of course. And for those of you who are going to be listening in for the next one, we do host Twitter Spaces every couple of weeks with founders, or we also host roundtables where actually your colleague Darcy has been on. So stay tuned for the next Twitter Spaces and have a great day. And thank you all for tuning in.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.